Today we are going to look at the dangers of sugar. Sugar in all its form is characterized as a simple carbohydrate that the body converts into glucose, which ends up serving as a vital energy source. The impact sugar has on the well-being of a body depends on whether one ingested a natural sugar from a wholesome food or ingested added sugars found in processed items. So to better understand this subject, we're going to consider the two types of sugars. One is the natural sugar and the second one is the refined sugar. So the natural sugar is a type of sugar that is naturally present in food, for instance, in fruits or vegetables. This type of sugar comes with the fiber, the vitamins, and the minerals that contribute to a balanced diet. And the refined sugar, on the other hand, these are processed from sources like sugarcane and sugar beets. Refined sugar may be from a natural source, just as a natural sugar, but it has been processed so only the sugar part of the natural source remain, and this can be in form of a crystal, say from a sugar cane. Sugar is processed so that it can be easily used in packaged products and maybe added to foods and beverages. It is commonly found in baked goods like candies, sugary substances like crackers, biscuits, and even sugary drinks. When we're talking about the natural sugars, their advantage over the refined sugars is that these natural sugar are plant-based foods that are rich in natural sugars, and these plant-based nutrients come along with dietary fiber, and these dietary fiber are very useful for our body because the natural sugars are intact unless they have added sweeteners. Sugar is addictive in nature. Refined sugar is drawn parallel with drugs due to its capacity to initiate the release of dopamine within the body. Dopamine subsequently heightens the desire for more sugar. With time of use, repeated sugar consumption can lead to tolerance effect. This causes the body to require a high amount to achieve the same kind of pleasure. This interaction has contributed to the notion that sugar consumption can mirror addictive tendencies. Some studies have as well suggested that sugar may influence the neural pathway in a manner that is similar to addictive substances. However, sugar can also lead to habit-forming behavior in certain individuals. Explore the consumption rate of sugar. Experts have proposed that people are allowed to consume at least 6 teaspoons, which is equivalent to 24 grams. This is mostly for women, and men, the threshold is slightly higher, that is 9 teaspoons, or maybe say 36 grams of sugar. However, we need to remember that as much as we are talking about the threshold, we also consume sugars from other sources. Any form of carbohydrates that we take, be it bread, pasta, potatoes, rice, all these are simple sugars that are broken down into glucose. The people in US consume more sugar than any other country in the world. The quantity is significantly high as well for countries like Germany, Netherlands, Ireland, and Australia. On average, in America, people consume a minimum of 17 teaspoons each day. Another analysis was also done, and this painted a different picture. It gave an analysis of about 34 teaspoons daily. If we look at this study and projections, it shows us that the average consumption is 6 times more than the advised limit. However, we need to realize that when we consume sugar in excess, be it in foods like cakes, sweet budding, pastries, jellies, and jams, and even sodas, they end up having a negative effect onto our bodies. And it shows that even from these foods, the intake surpasses or even exceeds the recommended daily intake. It's important to take caution when we are combining milk and sugar, but let's look at our lifestyle. Be it breakfast, we do a lot of combination of milk and sugar in our baking, in beverages, and in a number of things. We do mix milk and sugar. But when these two ingredients, milk and sugar, are taken together, they become notable culprits in causing indigestion issues. And study shows that sugar clogs the system and ends up causing diseases. It hinders the working of the living machines, which is our body. And sugar and milk combined are liable and end up causing fermentation in the stomach, which is not only harmful, but the brain is also affected in the process. We are sure from studies that anything that hinders the active motion of the living machine, which is our body, be it the stomach or anything else, equally ends up affecting the brain directly. Let's now consider on the impact or the challenge of excessive sugar consumption. The first one is unhealthy weight and fat accumulation. Consuming too much sugar can lead to unhealthy weight gain, particularly around the abdomen and other major sections of our body. So if we get to limit added sugar intake, we reduce the risk of developing obesity and sometimes tooth decay or any chronic disease. The risk of chronic disease increases with the increase of sugar consumption. Excessive sugar consumption also leads to the type 2 diabetes, and we see that lowering added sugars to 5% of our daily calories will get to improve glucose tolerance in our body, and it will reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes and any other related metabolic issues. The other effect of excessive sugar consumption is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So excessive sugar, particularly fructose, can lead to fat buildup in the liver, and this buildup increases the risk of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And the end result of this is equally a problem that we've just looked at, that is obesity and increased fat accumulation in the body. Excessive sugar can also result in blood pressure and metabolic dysfunction. What increased added sugar does to the body is that it elevates the blood pressure, the heart rate, inflammation, and insulin resistance, contributing to a broader metabolic issues that most people experience these days. The last implication of excessive sugar in our body is the eye problem. So eye health concerns arise by an increase in processed sugars. As a sugar-rich diet can negatively impact the eye health, Regular sugar consumption raises the blood sugar level, causing lens swelling and the vision distortion. It's also linked to diabetes-related eye complications like the leaking blood vessels, hemorrhage, and potential vision loss. We're going to look at the healthy alternatives for sugar. So in place of using a lot of added sugars, it's important for someone to consider a food rich in natural sugars. These foods are quite nutritious and they are quite beneficial to the body because they have an increased fiber content and nutritional value. The other alternative, especially for people that are accustomed to having added sugars in their diet, is to have natural sugar alternatives as substitute for refined sugar that is derived from natural sources. These alternatives end up sweetening and making the food taste more amicable to our taste bud without the same level of processing as the refined sugars. Some common natural sugar alternatives that we can use include honey. Honey that is produced by bees from flower nectar. Honey that is produced maybe naturally tend to sweeten and have traces of mineral and antioxidants that are helpful to our bodies. The other alternative could be molasses. This is a byproduct of refining sugar or sugar beets into sugar. Molasses are better than using refined sugars because they are rich in minerals like iron and calcium. And one of the last health alternatives that we'll consider, especially to refined sugar, is fruit purees. So you can have mashed or blended fruits like bananas, apples, or dates that you can use in place of refined sugars, especially to sweeten your recipe. For instance, when you're doing you're baking a bread or cake, instead of using the refined sugar, you can easily blend 2 or 3 bananas, which ends up sweetening, adding a natural sweetness to your recipe. We might not be able to overcome the sugar addiction or the use of high amount of sugar in our diet immediately, but we can get to easily tone it down by progressively introducing much more natural, wholesome foods into our diet, which will act like a supplement to refined sugars that have become so accustomed in most of our diets.